Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. It's me, Kenny Polcar, your host of the party, and today is Monday, February 14th, 2022. Happy Valentine's Day. As you can see, I am broadcasting to you live today from the beach in South Palm Beach. There's the ocean behind me. The sun's just coming up. There's not a cloud in the sky that's visible. It's going to be another gorgeous day, although I will tell you, the morning it's a little brisk. It's about 65 degrees right now. It's a little bit cooler than it has been. But anyway, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happened in Fridays in the market. As you know, it was a disaster, right? But here's what you need to think about. It's all about the geopolitical headlines that are diverting the attention away from the weakening U.S. data and runaway inflation. PPI, the producer price index, is due out tomorrow, and what will that show? Oil now holding steady at $93 a barrel, and if Vlad invades Ukraine, then watch it go to 100 in very short order. Xi watching every move as he considers taking Taiwan. Expect him to support Vlad in return for Vlad supporting him. What will Joey do then? And what do we have for dinner tonight? We're having the Borscht Soup, because it's right from the Ukraine. Okay, so look, stocks slid on Friday as the administration played up the possible Russian takeover of the Ukraine, all as the economic data in the U.S. just points to surging inflation, leaving the administration appearing a bit confused, while some other members of the Fed offered up their own thoughts on what's the next move should be, saying that they are only speaking for themselves and their opinion does not reflect the thinking of the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee. Okay, look, there's a lot to digest here, right? But the takeover of Ukraine by the Russians is not the main plot at all. The media is playing it up as if it is the main story, but investors in the U.S. and around the world are trying to price in what happens to the markets when global central banks begin to pull back the reins in the weeks and the months ahead, reminding us all of the great Winston Churchill quote from the 1940s as the Second World War was coming to an end. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's what's happening, right? Look, on Friday, as the day wore on, stocks got weaker. Talk of an even more aggressive Fed causing investors to remain cautious. Analysts telling us that Jimmy Bullard's view of the world was his own analysis, no matter that he is a voting member of the FOMC this year. Are we supposed to believe that Jimmy B would come out and offer up that kind of commentary without a blessing from Jay Powell and no warning at all of his fellow committee members? Doubtful. But as the talk of how the Fed misread all the signs and how the administration's policies have only amplified the current inflationary environment, ratcheted up, they needed to change the focus. They couldn't let this geopolitical crisis go to a waste. So as the sun began to set, talk of a weekend invasion by the Russians sent stocks into an end-of-the-day tailspin. By 4 p.m., the Dow had given back 500 points, or 1.4%. The S&P down 85, or 1.9%. The Nasdaq choked on 400 points, or 2.8%. The Russell fell 20 points, or 1%. And the transports gave up 400 points, or 2.5%. Yes, now look, a Russian takeover of the Ukraine would be a big geopolitical news. And yes, markets will most likely react, if they haven't already, ahead of this news. But at this point, how can anybody be surprised? I mean, Vlad has been building up his forces on the border of Ukraine for months now. Satellite images have reflected this. Talk of an invasion is and has been all over the place, on TV, on the radio, in the papers, splashed on the internet for weeks now, and only appears to be building as the U.S. economic data gets worse. Now, there's a name for that. It's called diversion tactics, and it's intended to divert the attention away from what they don't want you to see or question. In this case, the they is the current administration, and what they don't want you to see is how inflation is heating up, as if you don't see it already. I mean, that's almost comical, that part of it, because everybody understands what inflation is and what it's doing to your pocketbook and to the country. The attack on Ukraine could be multi-pronged, according to CNN. It could be via the internet, shutting down the communications line, jamming their lines, all while tanks drive their way into downtown Kiev. We've got Secretary of State Tony Blinken, right? He's warning of an invasion at any moment, blah, blah, blah. He's been doing that for weeks now. Any moment. Joey telling us that if Russia makes a move, then there will be severe consequences. Talk of shutting down the Nord Stream 2 pipeline at the top of his list, leaving some reporters to ask him how. How are you going to shut that pipeline down? The pipeline goes from the Russian Arctic to Germany via the Baltic Sea. It was completed in September 2021 and provides natural gas to Europe. So are the Europeans going to sanction Russia and disrupt the flow of natural gas, causing yet another crisis across that region? Vlad thinks not. And I don't think so either. I think sanctions on the Russian economy sounds interesting, but most likely a big non-event. In the end, here's what I think is going to happen. The Germans and the Europeans are going to negotiate a deal that will allow Vlad to save face. It will give the Americans an out, and it will leave Ukraine as a non-member of NATO, dependent once again on Russia, because that's what Vlad wants. So that's ultimately what I think he's going to get, and this whole geopolitical thing will calm down. What I think is really interesting, though, and more dangerous is what Gigi is thinking and readying to do, because a takeover of Taiwan will be a much more severe global issue that has the potential to disrupt the world order. And you know what? Shame on us for even allowing that to happen. The fact that the U.S. does not produce our own semiconductors is a complete failure of our government going back decades. But that's a whole nother story. Let's not even go there, because we could spend all day talking about that. The issue here is if Russia invades Ukraine, China will support them, and that will put more pressure on an already tense U.S.-China relationship. And then what happens if China decides to take Taiwan after the Olympics? Surely Russia will back China, and you can be sure that Gigi is watching very closely how the world reacts to this Russia-Ukraine issue. But no matter how the world reacts, China has made it very clear that Taiwan is part of Greater China and that they are tired of Taiwan acting like their own nation. And this, my friends, is a much bigger issue. It's a much bigger issue for the world order. It's a much bigger issue for the markets. In any event, Russia did not invade Ukraine over the weekend. But talk of the possible takeover continues today and this morning. European markets are getting slammed, all down more than 3% in the pre-dawn hours. The media telling us that it's this week. That this week the Russians can invade at any moment. Some suggesting that he'll wait until the end of the Olympics, which is Friday, while others suggest he won't. Word out of Russia is that the U.S. is creating the hysteria and that investors only need to look at Washington to find the real problem. U.S. futures this morning, they are also down in the pre-dawn trading, right? Dow futures were down 300 points. S&Ps were off 50. The NASDAQ was lower by 200. The Russell was off by 24 points. And the VIX, which is the fear index, is already up 16% this morning at 3163 and going higher most likely. The triple leveraged S&P short, the SPXS, which was up 6% on Friday, is quoted up another $1 this morning. And the other ETF non-leveraged shorts also moved on Friday. DOG was up 1.5%, PSQ up 2.7%, and SH was up 1.8%. Energy and utilities were the only two sectors that moved higher on Friday, with tech, consumer discretionary, and communications all getting slammed, along with the other sectors too, but those three really got slammed. There is no economic data today at all, but tomorrow brings us the all-important PPI, Producer Price Index, and that will be important for investors and the Fed. Now, the estimates are calling for a retreat. The PPI year over year of plus 9%, down from 9.7% last month, while PPI ex food and energy year over year is estimated to be 7.8, down from 8.3. The whisper numbers, though, suggest that the reports will be higher. In any event, if the PPI reports come in weaker than last month, then expect that will take some of the pressure off the very aggressive Fed comments. But my sense is that Bullard was so emphatic last week that they must suspect something is up and they want to be prepared. Now, if they're weaker, they can always say that Bullard's comments do not reflect the Fed's thinking, which is exactly what they'll do, just to try to mute and to neutralize his very aggressive comments. Cryptos continue to get hit now under these circumstances. Bitcoin is now trading at 42,100 and Ethereum is trading back below 3,000 at 2,800. The S&P closed on Friday at 4418, down 85 points, breaking the key long-term trend line again at 4450. And that leaves us ready to retest the January 24th lows of 4422 or thereabouts. That's a 4% move lower from where we are right now. We have been talking about this, so now it's happening, so nobody should be surprised. If you're a long-only investor, now is a time for patience. Don't go run the right way. Be patient with your money. If you play it from both sides, then just make sure you're watching your short hedges, because the tone can change quickly. Although I don't think it's necessarily going to change today again, but this is not the time to fall asleep. Remember, stick to your plan. Stick to the long-term plan. Call me to discuss if you have any questions. I'm always happy to talk about it. Okay, so what are we having for dinner tonight? So I thought about this all weekend, so I'm featuring this Borscht Soup, which is really a Ukrainian favorite, although it must be also a Russian favorite, but this one comes from a Ukrainian friend of mine, right? And considering the most recent developments, I thought this might be appropriate to feature a Ukrainian dish in the Borscht Soup. Okay, so it's a classic beet soup, right? You all know that. It originated actually in the Ukraine, which is now, but it's now popular across a staple of East and Central European countries. It can be made completely vegetarian, or if you can add in sauteed sausage to spice it up. Either way, right? Now, if for this you need the sweet sausage, if you're going to use it, you need 4 medium beets, peeled and shredded. You need shredded carrots, shredded potatoes, tomato paste, onions, water, shredded cabbage, diced tomatoes, garlic, salt and pepper, sugar, sour cream, and fresh parsley. So if you're using the sausage, start by sauteing the sausage in a frying pan over medium heat, season it with salt and pepper. Now remove it from the heat and just put it aside. In a big pot, you want to add 2 quarts of water. 2 quarts of water, bring it to a boil. Now, if you're using the sausage, add the sausage and the beets. Bring that back to a boil. Now add the carrots, the potatoes, return that to a boil. It should all be boiling for about 20 minutes. Once you get it all in there, it should be boiling. Now you're going to add the cabbage and the diced tomatoes after that initial boil, right? In a separate frying pan, bring it back to a boil. In a separate frying pan, you're going to saute the onion until they're translucent. You know what it is, 8 or 10 minutes. You're going to add in the tomato paste and about 1 cup of the water from the soup into that saute pan. When it's mixed well and the tomato paste is softened, you're going to add that to the pot with the raw garlic cloves. Bring the whole thing to a boil, then turn the heat off, let it rest for 10 minutes. Taste and season with salt and pepper, and then a dash of sugar, just a pinch of sugar. When you're serving this, you want to serve it in warm bowls with a dollop of sour cream right in the middle, along with fresh parsley. You can put it on to decorate it to give it some color, right? Because the beet, it's a really red, deep red soup, and the dollop of sour cream gives it that white, and then the parsley will give it that green. So it'll be a really beautiful looking soup on your dish. But it's simple. This is a Ukrainian favorite. It's a Ukrainian staple, actually. So I hope you enjoy. And anyway, look, the sun's coming up. It is getting a little bit warmer out here today. It's going to be a very, very interesting day to see what happens in the markets and see what happens with the conversation. Until tomorrow, take good care.